Finally, for some real, tangible news to share. Hello, hi, once again, this is yours truly, Clarice T. And today is the Friday that we've been waiting for, the 16th of June, 2023. In the heat of the moment, meaning the preparation for the recognition day of Duel as she moves from kindergarten to grade 1. I will skip with the longish introduction that I had been doing in the beginning of my podcast. Welcome to episode 7. So even though it's a hectic day, but this podcast cannot wait because today is a especially sad and especially happy moment. So it's a mixed feeling, and I just want to share this, not just for our generation, but the next generation who will hear this podcast. Whoever had said internet is forever, it's kind of it's somehow it's true. So I am banking on how as time passes by so fast, overnight it would seem. I just want to capture the moment which I cannot, which I will have a hard time repeating if I will tape this podcast later at a later date, because it's been happening now. First off, it's a sad day with the passing of Lola Tia Ising, Lola Pelang's youngest sister. It's truly sad that I have my own reasons, for my absence in the wake, which would not have happened had our circumstances are different. In times past, I would have, make my sympathy and condolences by attending the wake, but it's so different. I cannot ignore the fact, and this will be more open for discussion in the coming days. And for the happy occasion of Jubel's first graduation, it will also mark the new generation that as of now, Juanito and Jubel would be the elders. Who knows what next year will hold for them and for, the future cousins are concerned. In totality, it could have been worse. The photo of the woman who will stand with Jewel in her graduation could either be a psychologically inept person who does not have the right to do what she's doing, and that's me. Or she could be a person of harmful influence disorder, and that's also me as described in the past. Or she could also be a writer and music artist who has a reason to pass on the estate and intellectual property rights ultimately to her and to the other generation. So that's also me, and that's what the documents and completion of the requirements are for. So all these identifications are so confusing, especially to impressionable age, and nobody would want to be saddled with a lunatic grandmother or an ancestor. The progeny would not relish being the generation who come from a confusing family background. So it would not be a speculative, theoretical future like how it would be if Joanna May, that she's my youngest daughter, is not married with kids. JM and Lee are in the same boat, or almost, with my nephew JC Boy. He's the only son of my younger brother, board member Jerry talaga. Now that the human rights of children are being concretized by Jewel and Juanito, it is not an abstract future generation progeny of Clarissa talaga. What's it? So the legal position will come by through the Family Code of the Philippines. So even at this point in time, what governs our relationship and welfare protection would be the SWD, the Judicial Family Court, the various foundations. They can help and they have jurisdiction over this matter here in the Philippines. It doesn't matter how laughable the claims of their grandmother is at this period in time. The corresponding proceedings are as serious as can be. The memory of non-bystander, the memory of the next of kin, the core and nuclear family unit, and the persons of interest will find their way to the actual existence of documents that are being validated at this time. The president wherein, in my absence, Jacqueline graduated high school and celebrated her 80th birthday had been prevented from being reenacted and repeated with the purging of the narratives and legal personality. My 16-month absence was on account of my stay in Tagaytay, whereas Jewel's mother, Joanna May, that's my daughter, will also be in Tagaytay today, but for entirely different reason. She will be absent from her daughter's kindergarten graduation, not because she is perceived to be in need of interventionist therapy, but because she has company event today, as it's part of her job, of her employment. So it is not because she will be confined as a resident of a Tagaytay rehab facility. That's why she cannot be with Jewel today. Instead, it is I, the former rehab resident, will stand in her place beside Jewel. All this matters because these are relevant precedents. Were it not for my conscious decision making, this would not have been what is happening today. Speculation or cause and effect. That too will be defended and justified in a real forum. The criticisms and judgment I incurred due to this consistent course of action, whereby I purged the feasibility of personal knowledge as to my person and behavior and decision making, could not be helped but by making a structure that will eliminate windows of opportunity like how it had been in 2007. The definitive future is thus achieved. So the copyright and the creator's legal personality to petition recognition will be passed on as a matter of legal rights of successors and heirs. There will not be a room for Jewel and Juanito's heirs to be confused by who their grandmother is. As I introduce the other aspect of my personality besides being their grandmother, the day-by-day reality is not twinned by false narratives and alternate reality. So this alternate reality, it is my hope and prayer that it will not latch on to the real day-by-day events and realities. I will not be competent and able to help them and guide them without the real resume and capacity and capability that I have in my other profession, in my real profession. Possibly there are many competing and parallel narratives, and it is more than probable too that what I represent to them day by day is just one of the narratives that other persons and other group would insist on as the real account of what happened in our generation. Now that test cases will take place for other parties to invoke the law and justification for their claim in our either to our name, ownership, or what to being compensated. The civil rights, such as the right to association, our rights to join groups of our choosing, will now open the door for more social functions and interactions. They will be more exposed to various influences, and this is where the more guidance will be needed. And so open dialogues and interactions, discussion of the real facts will take place, not just, very speculative and very abstract. So I am just glad that the courses of action that I took ushered us to this here and now. Hi, so today is the 17th of June 2023. It's a Saturday. So this is a 2-day in the making 7th episode of my podcast. And the harrowing, breathtaking kindergarten graduation has come to pass to the delight and sigh of relief of the watchful eyes of the mothers, the fathers, the guardians. For me, it was about what will be the very moment Jewel will choose to remember. She loves to walk around and practice vocalizing even with a speaker on stage. And it did not happen. Thank you so much. As a matter of fact, the lessons learned from such episodes have not been forgotten, as it turns out. Hello, Christmas party. Those were the first gatherings and special events where I saw that she had a lot to learn, and she did. It would have happened again, but nipped in the bud. That's the right term. And that's the process of learning and growing up. For me, the most improved student, of course, I'm very biased, and I have benefited from this perception. The most improved student is manifested in the form of a muted communication. She was not a verbal communicator. She would use, gestures and moaning and tantrums and whining to get what she wants or to convey what she needs, what she feels. But this time around, it's, there's no off button for her. So, the most improved student is manifested in the form of a muted communication going to her first day in classes as a kindergarten. And at the closing of this semester, she could perform on stage. Talk nonstop, write numbers and words, and actually phonetically read short words, not to mention sit for almost 3-hour-long program without instigating guardian violence. Joke. This is Jewel's first formal schooling because she didn't attend any daycare or nursery, being a pandemic toddler. And with that, congratulations to the Christ the King Learning Institute Lucena City, to the teachers and staff, and congratulations to the fresh high school, elementary graduates, or whatever their equivalent to the new education system K-12 here in the Philippines. On to the more serious part of this podcast. Yours truly, given an opportunity, would be appealing to the American authorities how my course of action had led to a sensible and economic application of policy to such as me. Why? The alternative scenario, had I not exercised thoughtful execution of my program of action, is that I would have reached the US shores as a dependent tourist, and yet because of my person and my quote unquote uniqueness, I would have brought trouble. My sense of injustice, seemingly like a predictable weather and climate that had been disrupted, creating havoc everywhere. I could have made claims that would have been impossible to prove even while under the sponsorship and responsibility of my relatives in the US. Those claims could only be proven by Philippine issued local Lucena City certificates that no one would have applied for except me. Assuming that from being a Filipino tourist in the US soil, I was able to apply for any kind of temporary permit in order for me to find work and earn my keeps in the absence of my real identification. In the absence of my real resume and authentic curriculum vitae, the available work for me would have reflected the ill-fated situation I was put into. I would have looked for ways in order to retrieve them, the real documents from offices here in Lucena City through the justice and diplomatic channels that will be costly if they will happen through U.S. government agencies that will be the recipient of scrutiny for whatever course of action that can dissatisfy onlookers and bystanders watching in or out of political seasons. But since I've corrected my visa application and used the time to personify the correction, the reapplication of lost documents, the contesting of wrong data assigned to me generated by the system, my footsteps have become traceable. They are duly assigned with queuing numbers from the time I shared the inaccurate, detailed personal information at the appropriate local office to the actual reporting and follow-up of my consolidation as the real Clarissa Talaga Garcia to each officer in charge. The internal forms filled up and submitted by my person to initiate the process had been pursued wherever the process had taken me, and I have reached the documentation ready for submission without the need to compete for the attention of the bureaucracy here in the Philippines and in the US. I have not raised the alarm to cry for urgency of action in my behalf and have not distracted or deflected from the real concerns being attended to by the government offices. Having said that, speaking of queuing numbers, mine are coming up, and all the hard work and patiently waiting for my turn while tackling the intervening events that could have kicked me out of the line will result in a venue where I can give an account of what I've come to say. And this is it for now. Thank you for listening to episode 7, and see you to the next episode. Bye. So if I'm real and if my documents are truly registered in the local regulatory offices, then my hold over this runaway, aka or also known as Clarissa, is truly a legal